Okay, I think we can probably get started now. It's a few minutes after 4. Thank you, everyone, for taking some time out of your day today to join the virtual annual meeting that we have in store. Normally I think we'd have this meeting the evening before the Geospatial Summit in the fall. So, a little bit different look this year, but obviously we wanted to be able to get in front of you all and provide some updates on what's happening with the association, and then also be able to provide some speakers from the government side in how they've responded to the events related to COVID-19, and then also to recognize some of our GIS champions over the last year. Obviously, those individuals and organizations that have done a lot to support public outreach in the wake of the pandemic. So again, we want to be able to, give some shout outs to those individuals and organizations as well. Melissa, I don't know if you have the presentation up at the moment. Would you be able to share that slide? There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So if you want to just go to the next slide. So for schedule today, again, I kind of mentioned, we want to go through some of the the business that we would normally go through for the annual meeting. So that would include, just a welcome with some updates from me, Jonathan Garner, the president. We'll go into the treasurer's report. I'll give kind of a brief overview of the committees and some of the updates that they have for us. Carol from the Communications Committee will give an update on the new website that we rolled out this year. And then we'll go into some professional service announcements and then get into the awards, which I mentioned, and then kind of go into the meat of the meeting this year, which is going to have 3 speakers from different levels of government who will speak to their response to COVID-19. So really looking forward to that. And then if time allows, we'll have some time at the end, hopefully for some questions for the membership. And we'll see if we can fit all of that within 2 hours. So next slide, please. So again, I want to welcome everyone. Really appreciate taking the time to join us. Being part of the association is really important, and to myself, to the board, to all of those in the committee, and I think that we've really shown that in a real up and down kind of year, right, that we're still able to have the association be there to provide outreach, to support organizations as needed, and really excited to be part of that. So as a result of that, we've done a lot of what we normally do, right? So I think one of the big benefits that we offer is the professional development webinars. Again, those have been ongoing. I think that we have the next one scheduled for November 13th. I'm looking forward to that. Some of the other things that we've done, again, I think I mentioned the new website. We promoted that. We've worked a lot with the Communications Committee. They did an amazing amount of work to roll that out. Carol will share some updates and show some screenshots of that later. If you haven't checked that out, I would strongly suggest going there and taking a look. It's a lot more intuitive, I think, than what we've had in the past. So really great resource, and a really great way to have outreach to you, the membership. We've had more professional development opportunities within the association. We continue to offer committee level support and opportunities, which is great. We continue to support the outreach for the COVID-19 or during the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been a slew of resources that we've provided and made available either through the website or being kind of part of the regional committees and having regular meetings, bi-weekly meetings, to be able to all get together, all share ideas, and kind of come together and kind of have strength in numbers. Again, that coordination session happens regularly. One of the other things, normally we would have the election as part of this annual meeting. So we are looking to finalize the kind of the ballot for that, and then you'll be seeing that that election show up. We'll go through the typical election survey where you can choose board members and president-elect, which will be up for nomination this year. So I guess be on the lookout for that. And then obviously we'll share the results of that election survey in I think about a month or so is when we'll have that. So can move on to the next slide. So our current leadership that we have. So again, I'm currently president. I'll be moving to past president once we finish the election. Chris BADUREK will become the new president, and Rick Reichert will be finishing his 3-year term as president. We thank him for his support leadership during that time. Michelle Debbia continues to be our secretary, and Krista Hay our treasurer. We have 3 current board members: KARYN, TAREEN, Wei-Ming Chan, and Mary Susan Knaus. We do have 1 vacant board member position that we are going to look to fill. I can't say enough how much I really enjoy having everyone on this team. Show up, continue to provide support, really have great ideas, and just really can't say enough. So we'll look to fill some positions for the next board year, and I look forward to being part of that as past president. We can go to the next slide. So this is the annual treasurer's report. So this was provided by Krista Hay, our treasurer. So as of October 19th, 2020, there is $54,242.83 in the association bank account. We're averaging about a $50,000 balance and about $8,000 in our yearly operating expenses per that report. This year we saw less operating expenses due mainly to certain events and programming being canceled. Normally the association would sponsor those types of events, provide funding where needed, and so there just wasn't as many opportunities for that. The expenses do not include the annual event, which typically ranges from $15,000 for the summit, which would have happened this year, to $95,000 for the NYGOCon, which would happen next year. If you look at the income, it totals about $8,641.92. That is a combination of dollars gained from membership, so the membership renewals that we gather, as well as the registration costs for the NYGOCon from 2019. So you can kind of see that rolling up to that number. Next slide, please. And this is just a continued list of some of the expenses that the association has had and expects to have. So yearly expenses, you can see those listed below. That doesn't include those expenses that were considered, part of the NYGOCon 2019. And then we do have the estimated upcoming yearly operating expenses. And so these aren't yet finalized. What we will do is we will receive kind of the final estimates from each committee, their budgets, and we will vote and accept those near the end of this year. So those could change slightly, but those total about $7,693. So at this point, normally if we were all in person, we would look to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report. So I guess I would ask if anyone wants to make a motion. And so I'm just looking at the chat. Looks like Rick Reichert, past president, would like to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report. And Chris BADUREK, who's the president-elect, will second. And then now I would normally ask, who's in favor or not. In lieu of doing that, we did set up a survey, which everyone should be able to access on the side pane. There are 2 surveys that were created. There's the treasurer report vote, And then there's one that we'll come to later, which will be the motion to adjourn, which will kind of run through the same thing. So if everyone wants to vote on the treasurer's report to either accept or not, please go to that survey and we can come back to those results near the end of the presentation. So I guess with that, we can move into the next slide. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of run through each of our committees. So we have 9 committees that help support the association, and this is really where you know, we really rely on a large group of people that support each committee to help kind of push the association goals for the year. And without them, you know, obviously none of this would happen. And so what I wanted to do is just offer just some information about each committee, who's involved with each committee, and then just a few brief highlights that they've supplied as part of this annual meeting. So we can go to the next slide. So we'll start with the Communications Committee. So Carol Zellweg and Ann Deacon are co-chairs for the Communications Committee. The members of that committee are on the right there. This is you know, a great committee that does unbelievable amounts of work. You know, they, as mentioned, you know, have kind of helped push the website rebrand and help to kind of give it kind of a facelift and make it a better tool for people to get to information. They run the Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and website posts, and they're the ones who put those together and actually provide, you know, everything that you see in the membership. They've worked on some of the database administration web pages, making it a little bit easier to share among that group. The newsletter that goes out every month is put together by them. I think that's a great resource, a really nice way to kind of see what's upcoming event-wise. I really like the fact that there's, you know, some that they highlight as part of the association, just to give an idea of what they do. And then they were also integral in putting together the COVID-19 GIS resource page. We worked hand in hand in making that available, but I think it's a great resource with, you know, just several links, you know, to get to, you know, information that's been put out by so many of the organizations that we work alongside. We can go to the next slide. So the next one is the Geospatial Summit Committee, which is co-chaired by Kate Kinitsa and Liz DiGeronimo. So again, this would have been a Geospatial Summit year. So in lieu of that, you know, we wanted to still have obviously the annual meeting. I think we made the decision back in June that, you know, it just wasn't going to be something that we could put on this year. You know, the summit continues to be an event that has, you know, very, very engaging keynote speakers. It's a great place for people to just get together, communicate. You know, we usually have it at the Welch Allen Lodge, and kind of having everyone all in one big setting is really what makes that event, you know, what it is. So yeah, unfortunately we couldn't do that this year. You know, the summit committee will certainly look to reevaluate for fall 2022, which is still a ways away. Hopefully we don't have some of the same limitations, you know, that we have now, but certainly the committee will continue to look and work toward that. So appreciate all of their efforts. Next slide, please. The Professional Development Committee is headed by Melissa HEGEMAN and LETICIA VASQUEZ. Again, their opportunities for them are to, you know, just provide as much outreach, and they're the ones who, you know, put together the great webinars that we have for you, the membership. They have really helped to further the kind of the technology and really the knowledge that we have right from the association, and everyone kind of does their own thing, but, you know, making that available and everyone kind of sharing their experiences really what makes the association so strong. So we really appreciate their efforts. The committee members are on the left there. We can go to the next slide. The Legislative Committee is currently chaired by Reichert. Rick is the only member of this committee at the moment, but Rick is in charge of identifying, certain legislation that happens at various levels and how that might impact us GIS professionals in New York State. Rick regularly recommends actions or resolutions as a result of that legislation to the board, which can then, lead to some discussion, and obviously, we may look to either, try to get some programming set up, or at least provide some of that outreach to the larger membership on what has been added to the laws, I guess. So again, really important position. I believe that Rick will be stepping down as chair, so we'll certainly be looking for someone who can step in and be part of the legislative committee. Next slide, please. The Education Committee is chaired by Chris BADUREK. There are several committee members that help on the Education Committee. These committee members are very active at presenting at conferences. Obviously, education, we have many teachers and many of those in higher ed who, continue to promote GIS and geography, within those areas. They work with other committees to help develop some of the continuing education credits. That's something that, as an association, we're always looking to do is help to provide ways for people to get credit for some of the learning that they do outside of their day-to-day jobs. So they also strengthen relationships with other national education organizations. So keeping that bridge between the association and other organizations is very positive and very helpful as well. So we really appreciate the work that the Education Committee does. Next slide, please. Wei-Ming Chen is the acting chair of the membership committee. The membership committee ensures that members, are actually getting, as much as they can for their membership cost, right, at $10 every year. What they aim to do is have as much outreach and engagement in the membership. They are always looking to grow the association, which is great. So that's certainly a goal of any board, of any president. Obviously we want to retain the members of this association and make it a worthwhile $10 spent for everyone. So really appreciate the work done by the membership committee and Wei-Ming Chen for being the acting chair of that committee. Next slide, please. The Regional Coordination Committee is chaired by Ross BALDWIN. So Ross works with representatives from each of the regional groups within New York. Again, the mission of the regional committee is to improve collaboration. This has been an amazing group, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and as far as outreach and working together to kind of strengthen some of the communication among those groups. The work that group does will certainly be beneficial as we go into the next association year. And so I would encourage anyone who wants to be involved in those coordination calls to reach out to Ross or anyone within this group. This is really a great group of people who will help get the word out for what the association is doing and how we're all promoting each other in this year. Go to the next slide, please. And the NYGeoCon 2021 committee is chaired by Chris BADUREK. So this committee is currently looking at next fall and the NYGeoCon conference. Certainly, there's a lot on the table for next fall, some unknown, but I know that they've already started to meet and discuss ways that we need to prepare, and I'm sure that we will start seeing some communication regarding this event either later this year or early into 2021. So be on the lookout for that. We always want to, be looking ahead to kind of the main event that the association holds. And I'm sure that, if it's in person or virtual, it'll be great and have, a lot of great sessions that people can attend. So really looking forward to what this committee is able to put together for us. Next slide, please. And then also just I wanted to just thank you everyone who was part of both the board and the committee from the past year. We do have some departing members. So as mentioned, Rick Reichert is the past president, will be leaving the board. Emily Fogarty and Wei Ming Chan are board members who will not be on the board next year. Thank you to those three individuals for being involved and providing a lot of great input as part of the board of directors. Also, the departing committee chairs, Chris BADUREK from the Education Committee, Rick Reichert from the Legislative Committee, and Wei Ming Chan from the Membership Committee. Really appreciate all of your leadership at the committee levels. And of course, we'll always be looking for new volunteers on these committees. So if you are interested, know someone who might be interested, please have them reach out to info@newyorkstategis.net. Next slide, please. And with that, I guess we can move into the new website update. So I will hand it off to Communications Committee to go over that.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, is my screen showing up? Yes, yes, yes. All right, thank you so much. So we rolled out a new website in July because we were getting some feedback from our membership and our committee members themselves. We all took a look at the website and felt that it needed an upgrade in how it looked and how it felt, and needed to be streamlined a little bit. So we took a hard look at this, and we were lucky enough to have one of our members, Kelly Montague, with a very artistic flair, who was able to make a lot of really fantastic graphics to give it a fresh, new look. So one thing that she did was she came up with a new logo and incorporated the apple, which is a symbol of New York, as a map pin to be able to combine our state with the work that we do. And I thought that was super clever. And that now that map pin can be used on maps to show locations of things. So she pulls that into other graphics to be able to tie in the logo and other graphics to be used to highlight other events. She also incorporated a lot of really sort of eye-catching and yet not too bright colors, and pulled together polygons and lines and points to be able to illustrate our connection with mapping with these really nice graphics to tie everything together. And in addition, she's done a lot of graphics to then push out to all our social media platforms so that we have this consistent look from the website to Instagram, Facebook, and all our other social media platforms. And she even then tied it into other events. So in taking kind of that one idea and then using some other colors and fonts to sort of still keep kind of the brand, but then make the other events look a little bit different. So she really did a lot of graphics work for us and continues to do so whenever we need it. So in designing the new website and the homepage, we recognized that it needed to work better on on small devices, that the website had to be more responsive to that. So we removed all of the drop-down menus, and so there's all single-click navigation. We also got rid of like the sidebars and all, which don't respond well when the device size changes. And KARYN Campbell, who takes care of the back end part of our website, she analyzed which pages get the most hits and are most popular. And so we put all those links right up at the top here so that they're very, very easy to find. And then as you move down the page, our news posts are available. Any special dynamic information shows up in the middle of the page. And then we have our subscription links, and then all the information about, more sort of about our organization of committees and the bylaws and the board can all now be found in the footer. As you continue to move through the website, you'll see that the headers all have a consistent kind of look and feel to tie everything together. The controls are very responsive so that when your device size changes, the pages will reorganize themselves easily. You'll also notice that every regional group has its own special header. Kelly made all these. Each one shows a picture of that location along with the area where that group gets its members from. So it's all been customized for each regional group. So in a nutshell, that's what we have done with the website. We're hoping that you find it much easier to navigate, that it's super easy for you to find the information you're looking for right away. Same with new people coming to the website to find out what we're all about. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Carol. That was awesome. I think I speak for a lot of people that those updates are just what we needed. So really great work, and hopefully everyone can go visit that and experience the new website. A lot of work went into it, so any kind of feedback you have as well, I'm sure they'll take into account and use to make it even better going forward. So thank you so much. We'll move next. If you want to go to the next slide, we're going to go to TAREEN on the professional service announcements.
I'm hoping that yes. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, yeah, you hear us?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I all of a sudden lost all my sound. So really quickly, I'll go through just some announcements. The GeoCon 2021 for next year, we have some tentative dates lined up, September 21st and 22nd. They look like those might be the dates, but again, so pencil them in, but again, certainly in the current environment, anything is subject to change. There have been discussions about whether it will be virtual or in person, and that has not been made yet. As with a lot of things next year, I think probably most everyone will understand that we're still sort of working that out. Jonathan mentioned the COVID coordination meetings. So the Regional Coordination Committee chair, Ross, was really great about getting all of us together, and we realized through the Regional Coordination Committee that a lot of the coordination for COVID really should probably be run and have the different regions participating and understanding what other regions were doing in terms of the COVID response. So our committee kind of morphed into this secondary group where we have COVID coordination meetings. Now they're open for everybody. It's not just a committee meeting. So we encourage any of you that are interested in attending or interested in learning more about what we're doing to attend. And the easiest way to do that is by contacting Ross Baldwin. His email that is there on your screen, or should be. We meet every other Wednesday for just about an hour. And I can say that Frank, I hope hope it's okay to say this, but Frank is usually on the call from the state. So it's a really great meeting to attend, especially if you're interested in what the state's doing and what other regions are doing in terms of their communities. The professional development webinars. So Carol brought us through the really great overhaul of our website, and there's a couple things on that website. So the first thing is in the ongoing news section, so I'm going to kind of flip those a little bit, but in the ongoing news section, that's where we're making all the announcements for those webinars. The webinars are fantastic. Let me give you a list of a couple webinars we've had. So we certainly had COVID-19 webinar. We've had different technology webinars, things like ArcMap to ArcPro, building apps with open source. There's been all kinds of different technologies that have been highlighted, and even sort of free training, if you will. Data sources, there was a webinar on data sources that you may not know about, which could be really helpful. Even presentation skills was one of the webinars that I really enjoyed. I think that was last year. All of these webinars right now are available for free from that website. So you can find those webinars on our new website. So I encourage you to take a look. But perhaps more importantly, I also want you to notice that we have a blog. And this blog not only highlights the webinars, but it also has really great information for things like job openings. All of the information that we're putting out from the board or announcements from our association, certainly about conferences and different things that are happening within the GIS community. We also have links for other people's blogs. So Sam Weir, who has been really active with the New York Association and been really engaged with us, has a blog. And you'll notice if you go to our blog, it will have links back to his blog posts. So I encourage you to check out that blog on our page. It's in our news section, and take a look at what we're announcing. We also have a Twitter and Facebook, so if you don't follow us on there, it's a great way to get some posts and feeds and of information that we're putting out as well. And our communication committee does a fantastic job of keeping all of those updated. And finally, GIS Day, November 18th. We don't have anything to announce necessarily from the board, or from the association, but I personally encourage you to be involved with your local regional committees and regional groups and do something fun. There's all kinds of things out there that you could become involved with. If you're interested in doing something and you don't know where to get started, you're welcome to contact me, and I think you can get my contact information from the website. And that's it. Jonathan, back to you.
Karen, thank you so much for that update. I think we can move on to the next slide. And so we'll kick it over to Ross Baldwin from the Awards Committee, who will be presenting our Fight Against COVID-19 awards. I know there's a lot of recipients. So,
hey, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Good. 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 I'm going to get right to it. Melissa, do you have that slide? Perfect. I do have it. Perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. In the face of adversity, there's been a number of GIS practitioners throughout New York State who have stepped up to the plate and knocked the ball out of the park when it comes to the fight against COVID-19. Today, we are recognizing those by way of the New York State GIS Association Fight Against COVID-19 GIS Champion Award and the Fight Against COVID GIS Application Dashboard Award, presented to those that have showcased their extraordinary talents for leveraging GIS for the greater good. I want to take a moment first to acknowledge the winners of the GIS Champion and the GIS Application Award before I read the highlights of what each individual and team has accomplished. So the GIS Champions are, in no particular order, Frank Winters, Alan Leidner, Doug Schutz, Rick Reichert, and Dr. Gretchen Kulp. And the GIS Application Dashboard Award winners go to Erie County Office of GIS, Livingston County Planning Department, Rockland County Planning Department, Suffolk County GIS, and New York University. So please give a virtual round of applause for the GIS champions and the winners of the GIS Application Dashboard winners. Next, I'd like to, I always want to read. We asked the nominations to write up a little summary for everybody, and we end up putting a nice certificate together for everybody. And I have the awards on the other side of my desk. If I have time, I'll run over and do a screenshot of the awards. I have them on a table, but in the interim, I'm going to read each certificate as quickly as I can. They deserve to be read. There's so much good work being done throughout New York State here. So the first one I'm going to do is Frank Winters. Frank Winters, as the New York State GIO, has been a strong advocate for use of GIS to support COVID operations. He has pushed for the use of the New York State geocoder and has succeeded in having the state geocoder used for complaints about unsafe large gatherings of individuals. He continues to work hard towards even greater adoption of the geocoder to validate and correct the addresses of COVID positive cases. Frank has also promoted the idea of testing wastewater for COVID to determine whether there might be infected individuals within a campus type facility or development. He continues to urge improved data capture methods for county and city contact tracing and tracking operations. Frank has extended himself to speak on a regular basis to the New York State GIS Association Regional Committee, providing updates about the latest state GIS efforts and to obtain feedback from regional POCs. Frank recently assumed the role of president of the National States Geospatial Information Council. In this role, Frank has galvanized NYSGIC to be proactive in its support of wider use of GIS for COVID. He was instrumental in having NYSGIC publish a statement detailing the importance of GIS for COVID operations. Frank has also helped bring together ERISA, NAPSG, and OGC in an alliance to provide GIS use in dealing with the pandemic, leading to a number of national events. Frank has not only worked effectively within New York State, but has now become a national and international spokesperson for expanding the use of GIS. So thank you, Frank. Next, next GIS Champion Award goes to Alan Leidner. Alan Leidner has been on the front lines advocating for the use of GIS in the fight against COVID since the start of the pandemic. His passion and energy is second to none in everything he has contributed to, whether it be his 35-year stint with New York City government, his work with Booz Allen Hamilton, to his current role as president of Gizmo, just to name a few. Alan has been a regular contributor to the New York State GIS Association Regional Committee calls, which I couldn't have done those calls without him. It's super helpful, and like I said, we got a lot done this past few 8 months, and I owe a lot of gratitude to Alan for that help. Where he regularly challenged others to think outside the box. Alan was instrumental in organizing the use of precision location data for COVID operations webinar on August 19th, which explored the uses and benefits of precision mapping for contact tracing, COVID analytics, public information, and other forms of operations support. The webinar was made up of very distinguished presenters, as well as an expert panel, which was very well received. His passion and dedication to GIS has helped tremendously in bringing awareness to the efficiencies that GIS can create to help towards the battle against the pandemic. He has brought countless people together to share ideas and recently drafted innovative guidelines to building GIS capabilities to support the pandemic response. It is with great pleasure that we recognize Alan Leidner for his exemplary work in the fight against COVID-19. Thank you, Alan. Next GIS Champion Award goes to Doug Schutz of Rockland County. Doug Schutz has actively participated in New York State GIS Association events for many years. As GIS Director of Rockland County, and now as Acting Commissioner of the Rockland County Planning and Public Transportation Departments, he has consistently advanced GIS in his county and has, through the New York State GIS Association, shared his knowledge and achievements. Doug has been a regular on the New York State GIS Regional Coordination Committee COVID calls. Through his input, we became aware that he was doing something unique. He had initiated a dialogue with his Department of Health based on a trust relationship that started during the West Nile outbreak in 2000, working with the health department. Doug and his GIS team not only built a useful public dashboard to track COVID, but he also set up a geocoding application based on county and state SAM data. His geocoding application made it possible to quickly correct and validate address data of people testing positive for COVID. Doug and his team then were able to produce maps and analytical products for the health department based on his high quality location data. Some of these products aggregated data to the zip code level and were made available to the public. Other products mapped to the census tract, census block, and smaller grid cells for internal county use. They were able to identify hotspots with a high degree of precision, which then enabled the county to take effective action to contain the spread and save lives. Doug shared his knowledge on the regional committee calls and then put together an excellent presentation for the Precision Data Workshop in August. His presentations will likely be seen by GIS managers across the United States. As one of the only counties in New York State to geocode COVID data and use granular data to identify hotspots and patterns of spread, Doug's work is clearly a national GIS best practice. Thank you, Doug. The next GIS Champion Award goes to Rick Reichert. Rick Reichert was instrumental in creating and maintaining Oneida County's COVID-19 status dashboard while working from home. He reached the Esri technology and quickly became proficient in the use of dashboard capabilities included in Esri's toolbox. Within a week, he created a dashboard framework and implemented it to track all the data necessary to support the COVID fight. The dashboard includes mapping that traces the statewide spread of the pandemic, as well as detailing pertinent statistics and demographics of the populations affected locally by the virus. As time passes, the infection data trends are analyzed and portrayed in the dashboard to give the citizenry and community leaders a sense of where the outbreak is heading. The data is still updated daily and the trends continue to be followed. The dashboard is used to this day to ensure the measures the community is taking to mitigate this pandemic are working. It's great pleasure that we recognize Rick Reichert for his exemplary work in helping to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 by utilizing GIS in Oneida County. Thank you, Rick. And last but not least, the last GIS champion goes to Dr. Gretchen Kulp. Dr. Gretchen Kulp is an essential member of the surveillance and epidemiology branch of COVID-19 response within the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Department. Using her mapping skills, Dr. Kulp has made tremendous contributions to creating comprehensive reports of complex COVID-19 surveillance data and trends. She regularly presents and clearly explains the maps of case and testing rates, as well as percent positivity over time to key decision makers within City Hall. She serves as the chief geographer in terms of answering questions. Additionally, she brings a depth of expertise related to building level information that has unquestionably improved the accuracy and completeness of real-time surveillance data used for public health action. Specifically, Dr. Kulp has developed a geocoding package for R, where a large number of address data are efficiently and automatically geocoded via USPS verification and the New York City Planning Geocoding application. Dr. Kulp has implemented this geocoding package as a routine process of scrubbing COVID-19 data from testing providers, labs, clinics, and hospitals. This allows New York City DOH to accurately and timely describe and detect clusters of COVID-19 cases, which helps New York City government proactively respond to and contain COVID-19. Her geocoding work also helps identify data quality issues where inaccurate patient address data are entered. It has prevented the New York City government from misreporting COVID-19 statistics and wasting resources for taking action based on incorrect address information. Lastly, her geocoding work has made the daily release of geocode COVID-19 data on a New York City webpage and corresponding GitHub repository possible, which has been widely used by researchers and journalists and praised as an example of transparent government COVID-19 response. So thank you, Dr. Kulp. So next, I want to move on to the GIS Application Dashboard Award. So the first award goes to, as I mentioned, Erie County Office of GIS. The Erie County GIS team came together to design one of the first live COVID-19 dashboards in New York State. Their dashboard went live on March 19th, 2020, and County Executive Mark, sorry if I mispronounce this, Pollinkarts showcased it as his press briefing the next day. On March 20th, there were 101,000 views. It then became a crucial tool in the county's executive daily briefings and social media updates. It was referred to in all local newspapers and news channels as a central informative resource. Since going live, there has been 2.8 million views, currently averaging 3,000 a day. At its peak, the dashboard was averaging over 100,000 views per day. For the first month, the GIS team were tasked with updating the data up to 3 times daily, including weekends. They worked in close communication with the county's Department of Health to obtain and process the data updates compliant with HIPAA guidelines to keep the dashboard current. The dashboard has evolved over the course of the pandemic to include pertinent information in a clear and concise manner. The total count of confirmed cases is broken down into 2 maps with the dashboard, one by municipalities and one by zip codes. These maps are coupled with their own list widgets that highlight the area on the corresponding map as the user selects an item in the list. The user can also toggle between charts of daily cases as well as total cases, with the option to slide a scroll bar to change the date range. The design and implementation of this dashboard required technical skills to put together and to include ever-changing data from various sources, but it also demonstrates great teamwork and collaboration within the GIS group, as well as an excellent communication with other departments. This GIS team showed commitment and willingness to be available at any changes, if any changes were needed, as they knew the community was relying on them for important up-to-date information. So thank you, Erie County. The next GIS Application Dashboard Award goes to Suffolk County GIS. Suffolk County GIS, behind the leadership of Jim Daly, developed and launched both an internal and external COVID dashboard inspired by Johns Hopkins COVID-19 dashboard. With over 1.5 million hits to date, the data service on the side has received over 7 million hits. This dashboard is used by hundreds of municipal governments, not-for-profits, organizations, and the public to gain a greater understanding of the magnitude and spatial concentration of COVID cases in Suffolk County, New York. The groundwork for the dashboard begins at the COVID testing sites where the addresses are entered in free type. The address information then goes to the New York State Department of Health, where it's loaded into a database and made available to the Suffolk County Business Intelligence Office via an interface. At that point, Suffolk County GIS leverages this single access node and employs a robot to mine the cases specific to Suffolk County. As the data is mined from New York State DOH, is imported into a GIS database where the GIS team is able to run their geocoder against the address. Once the geocoder is completed, they furiously go through and clean the addresses that were not found initially by the geocoder. Addresses are then aggregated by census designated places and town for external dashboards, and more precisely for internal analysis. The dashboard was completely developed in-house on the fly. The design and implementation of this dashboard requires a specific skill set to put together. It demonstrates great teamwork and collaboration within the GIS group, as well as excellent communication with other departments. GIS team showed commitment and willingness to be available at any time changes were needed, and they knew the community was relying on this important up-to-date information. The Suffolk County GIS team has developed an incredibly helpful tool for Long Island hospitals to coordinate information between each other as well, including but not limited to number of beds available, number of ICU beds available, ventilators available, and morgue availability. So thank you, Suffolk County. The next one is Livingston County Planning Department. The Livingston County with 640 square miles and a population of 63,000 is located in the Finger Lakes region south of Rochester. Letchworth State Park is partly in the western part of the county, and the county seat is located in Geneseo. This beautiful historical community was proud to complete and roll out their first 2 ArcGIS Online web applications in the spring of 2020, just as COVID-19 was entering New York State. Taking the forward progress already initiated by the jump into having GIS portal available to the county, Livingston County Planning, led by Heather Ferrario, initiate a series of COVID-19 specific applications for both managing their response internally, but also to share critical information to the public. Working with the GIS services firm GeoCove, Livingston County created 2 public dashboards to be able to see where and how many cases were present within their community. Additionally, a facility application was created to allow the public to locate not only food distribution and testing locations, but also to be able to see the status of the county facilities, including temporary operating hours and status. Internally, Heather and her team were busy guiding the content and visualization of the dashboard, as well as building and managing the facility data sets, including details such as pharmacy and supermarket operation hours, and were solely responsible for the data updates to the public dashboard, in addition to all their normal duties. Heather also worked with the county's health department to build a series of Esri-based case tracking applications and dashboards. Heather, as the pandemic unfolded for their community, Heather stayed on top of making sure the data and the apps remain correct, relevant, and appropriate. Congrats to Heather and Livingston County for jumping into newer technologies to enable consistent and timely message to their community during a nearly impossible and rapidly changing crisis. So thank you, Livingston County. Great work. So next is New York University. This project describes a unique data set of 5,000 plus records documenting the perishable behavior of 6,000 plus individuals around 19 hospitals and urgent care clinics across 4 of New York's 5 boroughs at the height of the city's COVID-19 outbreak in the spring of 2020. The records were collected opportunistically by 16 student observers over 1,500 hours across all hours of the day and days of the week. The records documented the date, time, location, and gender, as well as objects touched, route taken, and destination selected, including various transportation options and specific types of retail establishments. 49% of them also noted the usage or absence of personal protective equipment usage. Subjects were observed from a distance for periods of up to 20 minutes or for a distance of 1.3 kilometers or until they were no longer visible from the street location. Observations were scraped from KML, KMZ records generated in site on personal smartphones and assembled in a master CSV file. Each record was joined with the locational information about the facility, 7 hourly weather attributes obtained from the closest weather station, and 61 attributes related to the demographics of the zip code in which the facility is located. These external data sources were drawn from Center for Disease Control, Vulnerability Index, and the Time and Date Weather API. The clean data are available in a single CSV file and with a code book in the individual KML, KMZ files. Additionally, 20% of the spatial records are available in a joined data set in data GIS system in which the individual KMZ files are joined as a single shape file to demonstrate the high usability of the data. Initial observations including that 75% of individuals touch something, 11% touched their phones, 55% left the area by a form of mechanized transportation, 13% returned to the medical facility, 81% were wearing PPE. The data offers the opportunity for longitudinal investigation over the course of the peak and the pause order itself, including the governor's mask mandate. So thank you, New York University, for your hard work. I missed one, and I got, Rockland County. Here we go. So the next one on the list is Rockland County. Last but not least, Rockland County Planning Department. Rockland County developed and launched a COVID-19 hub along with the various related dashboards. Scott Lonesbury was the architect behind the design and maintenance of the data. The original Rockland County COVID-19 dashboard contains various metrics obtained from numerous sources, along with several maps of total cases, as well as active cases, both by zip code. Though zip code level geography is not the preferred choice, it was used to remain consistent with earlier summary reports and for the benefit of public education. Additionally, the data was normalized by total population to display percentage of population. The metrics in either tabular and or graphical format show the following: total tested, reported cases, confirmed cases, active cases, deaths, as well as hospitalization data. Primary source for the daily information updates to the dashboards include New York State DOH, RCDOH, local hospitals, as well as the county medical examiner. Individual database sources include Health Electronic Response Data System, New York Communicable Disease Case Management System, ComCare, and the Communicable Disease Electronic Surveillance System. Second dashboard was launched entitled the Rockland Unpause Dashboard, based on the New York State Unpause regional site, but for Rockland County only, so they could monitor how they were doing with their region. The source for this information came from HERD's database. A third dashboard was subsequently launched entitled Rockland's Early Warning Dashboard. Based on the New York City Early Warning regional sites, the latter two dashboards were launched to help inform the public of solely Rockland County COVID-19 metrics. This has helped to better understand how Rockland related to comparison to the rest of the region. It has already led to other discussions of education, community engagement, enforcement. With the metrics to support what is going on locally, The county executive and Department of Health can advocate for necessary precautions when needed. So that wraps up all the awards. I commend everybody for the hard work. We commend everybody for the hard work throughout New York State, and thank you. Let's keep up the good work. And if we have a minute, I can show my screen. I'll show the awards. Let's see if I can switch my screen.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Ross.
One more thing real quick before I forget. If you are interested in the regional coordination sessions, my email was misspelled in that one side, or there was an extra H. So if anybody's, it's rbaldwin at southamptontowny.gov. There's just one H between the South and the Hampton. But thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ross. Really well-deserved, everyone that was mentioned there, and really great to see the public chat as well, seeing everyone giving kudos and recognizing your peers. So thanks everyone for doing that. I believe that Ross's contact information is also on the website. So if you want to go there to get his email address, you can go there as well. Moving on, so we have the next slide, please. So we're going to jump into our GIS, COVID-19, and government speaker series. So we do have 3 speakers. We're going to start with Mike Ross from the city of Rochester, and then go to Rick Reichert from Oneida County, and then to Frank Winters, our GIO for New York State. So we have some great presentations from them and how they've responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll hand it over to Mike.
Hi, everybody. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I have a couple of applications that I want to share with you that we put together as part of the city's COVID-19 response. The city doesn't have a health department, so we had kind of less involvement than some other organizations. The county level. We're doing a lot more than we were, but we did have some things kind of agile response in terms of application development. One of the most interesting things about what's happened with GIS the past couple of years is the ability to author applications with incredibly fast turnaround times. So I wanted to show you a couple of those that we did. So the story starts immediately after our initial shutdown. We have, as you may know, sadly, a huge incidence of child poverty in the city of Rochester. Over half of our children are living in poverty, which means that they get a lot of their meals from schools and rec centers. In most cases, in many of those cases, both breakfast and lunch. So having the schools and the rec centers shut down suddenly was really a burden for those children. So both the city school district and the city recreation department put in place grab-and-go meal programs where people could walk up to a rec center or a school and grab a box meal and have food for the day. They were poorly distributed at first. So our Office of Innovation did a really neat analysis where they took census data and looked at the density of children in poverty, and then mapped all the locations of the meal distribution sites, did a walk-shed analysis, and identified areas of the city that were not within walking distance of a grab-and-go meal site, and quickly opened up new sites. We added those to this Finder application so that people could find the closest site to them. So I'm going to use my current location, and it pops up a list of the closest sites. You see we have nicely formatted pop-ups from the web map, and as you hover over the selected button, it goes to a different place. It serves directions, and some of you may have seen this before. This is the nearby template, which is currently available only in ArcGIS Online. We built this in about a day, which was super quick turnaround, and it seems easy for us, but management was completely blown away by this. So, of course, it works on mobile. It's responsive design. So if I do that, it will do it in a nice phone format, very similarly. So that application was very successful. It got a lot of use, especially during the first 2 weeks or so of the shutdown, when everybody was kind of figuring out where they needed to go to get food. And you will notice that at this point, it just shows school district sites because the rec centers have stopped distributing grab-and-go meals. It's just the schools that are doing it now. The next thing is more recent. We have a Jumpstarting Rock campaign where we're trying to let people know that we are still open for business. We've reopened for business, and this is an application that can direct people to places that are open for business. So it's a configuration of operations dashboard. If we do food and beverage services, it will filter it to just that type. We do furniture. There's really only one furniture shop, I think, so that one's not very exciting. And then if you click a list on the side, it zooms the map to that spot, and you get a nice, again, well-configured pop-up with a link to their website, directions, etc. This one works on mobile too. Dashboards typically don't work on mobile very well. You have to configure a dashboard very differently to work on a small screen like a mobile application. So we kind of approach the functionality from the mobile app a little bit differently. So this one doesn't give you all the categories. It just shows you the businesses closest to you. So that works really nicely on a phone. And then the last thing I want to show is not work that me or my team did. It's work that Scott McCarty, my counterpart at Monroe County, did. And that's a dashboard. And you've all seen dashboards. He's getting his information directly from the Monroe County Department of Health. They're updating it every night. And there's some nice maps showing both the incidence by zip code and by population, different charts and graphs and good stuff. So they built that fairly quickly too. So that's what I've got for you. And if there aren't any questions or anything, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
I think that's really great stuff. I think we can maybe save some questions for the very end. We can maybe just keep speakers around.
Yep.
So anyone attending, just hold on to those questions if you have any. We'll try to have some time at the end for those. We can kick it over to Rick Reichert now from Oneida County. Screen sharing.
Okay, my apologies on the slight delay there. I'm unfamiliar with the format and getting the buttons clicked. I hope.
No worries, Rick. We got you. Thank you.
My name is Rick Reichert. I'm a senior GIS analyst with the Oneida County Department of Planning. I've been there for 20 years. I'm a military brat, and I spent some time in the service myself, and then a 1999 graduate of SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. Excuse me. We really had minimal to actually, frankly, no experience with building dashboards in March, and now we're at least fairly proficient at it. We're a user of Esri products in our shop, and we did have a enterprise GPS structure set up, and we had some ArcGIS Online experience with building some web mapping applications and so forth. But like I said, we'd never really done anything with dashboards and this kind of utilization of the technology before the COVID virus kicked in. And so with a lot of the quick tutorial studying on my part and some others, and with some assistance from some folks in the industry. I'd like to give an appreciation note to TAREEN. I hope I say your last name right, KARYN. But she kind of pointed me in the right direction when we were first getting started. But, you know, so this was sort of a lot of on-the-fly data compilation for us, and sort of a learning curve. And we were able to work cooperatively with our health department, and also implement and utilize a lot of the state data that comes out and is updated on a regular basis through their dashboards, and then sort of take some of that information to another level as far as what we could do and how we could look at it. You know, I sort of classify how we sort of worked into this as a phased response. You know, initially we were just trying to get some information out to the public and sort of share information, which is sort of how the primary Oneida County dashboard came about, and that allowed us to do some initial data analysis and so. And then we kind of refined that process as we went along. I hope I'm getting internet warnings. I hope everyone can still hear me. Excuse me. And sort of kind of refined our process as we went along. As you see here in the screen is our initial dashboard, but then that sort of worked on to where we were sort of looking at statewide data that could be analyzed and tabulated and work out some sort of comparative information for that based on population numbers. And then we sort of were looking at the impacts that applied to our county, our community, and sort of, you know, identifying where we might have areas of need to provide extra assistance and those kinds of services, as well as working towards doing sort of some proactive risk analysis. This is sort of what I consider to be some pretty good work that was put together with some of the folks on our team, and sort of weighing some factors. And a lot of this is done based on census and block group information, and sort of identifying areas where we thought there could be additional risk for coronavirus infections and things of that sort. And we're able to sort of use a in-house designed risk matrix, you know, to sort of help folks, help us decide, you know, where some effort should be put. You know, we looked at elderly populations, poverty populations. We looked at health risks such as hypertension, you know, density of population, you know, travel and average travel mileage, and things of that sort in order to develop our sort of weighted risk analysis. And so that allows us to kind of keep on top of where some of the hotspots are, where some of the trends are within the county, and then and within the state as well. And then we also have for our Mohawk Valley region, you know, which is a 6-county you know, state entity. You know, we maintain and monitor the data and things that the state is sort of looking at for making sure that you know, you're not trending up in areas you don't want to be trending up. So we're actually fortunate in that regard in our community that we seem to be doing okay, and hopefully things continue to be that way. But you know, it's taken a lot of work. There's a lot of things that go on in the background to sort of, you know, present this information. And I'm not a programmer. I'm not sure. I'm sure that there's other methodologies and so forth that are better than what we're doing. But I've made great use of some calculating type processes, including within Esri, using the model builder, you know, tool in order to help do some auto calculating and some aggregate kind of analysis without having to sit there and do that all by hand. But I do know that we're pretty happy with what we've put together here, and that that it's allowed the decision makers in our county to make better decisions, I hope. And it certainly enhanced our professional knowledge base, and it has definitely enhanced the awareness of our capabilities within the county. So, you know, we're certainly getting a lot more requests for this type of work now that's separate and away from the coronavirus specifically. But and so we're busy right now. We're getting a lot done, and we're in demand, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And especially when you're putting stuff out there that can be usable for people in the right places. That's really all I have. I'm sorry if you're not getting to have a really good look at these things, but you can sort of really see, you know, the kind of categories that we're tracking, from overdoses, for, you know, domestic abuse, as far as the impact areas, and, you know, unemployment, you know, as well as, you know, keeping track of, you know, how's testing going? What are the comparative pieces of information regarding fatalities, or you know, and how it relates to overall population numbers. So, you know, I think it's been a learning process for us, and good experience that sort of push professionally, probably, to help bring about this kind of information, and it looks like we'll be doing a lot more of it going forward. So that's really all I have, and I just with you all today to kind of to give you an idea of what's going on here in Oneida County. With that, I guess I'll also turn it back over to
Rick. Thanks so much. I was just thinking, you know, there's a lot of really great links that we're showing, so it's probably best if we you know, maybe assemble all of these for everyone to kind of go and check out on their own too. So we can probably look to do that as we share a link to the recording of this meeting itself. So Rick, thanks so much for sharing that. Just a time check, it's 5:15 at the moment, so we can move into the final speaker of the three. So Frank, whenever you're ready. And then I'll also just mention too, I know I had said for everyone to go and work with the survey. It's on the side pane. It's a clipboard with a check mark. I hope everyone can get to that. I think I saw some people were responding to that. So if you haven't done that yet, it should be that icon over on the left pane. Frank, all yours.
All right, great. Well, really happy to be here, everyone. And if you could set your settings on your video to have just a presenter view. I'm not going to share slides that are separate content from the video feed. I'll kind of pull them right in together. That'd be great. So hats off to everybody. And the association has really been a wonderful asset and wonderful, you know, collaboration community. I've got a few thoughts. Some of this will be repetitive for those who have been on the weekly calls, but let's look at things maybe in a little bit different light, and there'll be some new ideas here. So really the things that I want to get across is that, you know, GIS is really front page news, right? And people are doing fantastic work playing the cards that they're dealt. And some of those cards are dealt by the availability of data and the availability of impact. But I'm really kind of set out to kind of change the hand. And I think that was motivated largely by the interaction with the regional group and everyone that got fired up on those groups to say, yeah, we're not really content with the impact that we're having. At our annual conference in Syracuse, or biannual conference in Syracuse, I mentioned the GIS ecosystem. And an ecosystem really thrives best when people are each individually playing their most impactful role. And I think that many of us could agree that, yeah, we were playing a role, but are we really playing the most impactful role we can play? And that's kind of the bar that I'm trying to set. And I think we're chipping away at it. You know, I think we're getting there. So, you know, just these sound bites. I like my little 20-second version of the story. And, you know, the pandemic and its impacts are best understood in the context of space and time. And I think at the end of this, you'll hear somebody pretty important talking about that. Now, many of you know that I'm a fan of Dr. John Snow, but I've got a little different way to use his map. Dr. John Snow, epidemiologist in London. Actually, he was not an epidemiologist in London. He was a surgeon in London in 1854. There was a cholera outbreak. And Dr. John Snow was an unusual contributor. He was not an internal medicine doctor. So he was not someone that was expected to have the solution for cholera. Important point to keep in mind. Also, he didn't solve cholera outbreak with test tubes and microscopes. He solved it with a map. And here is Dr. John Snow's map with a little black dash representing every death that happened in London. And he determined that all of those hashes, the concentration, were closest to this pump on Broad Street. So by removing the handle from the pump, he was able to solve the cholera outbreak. So 2 questions for us moving forward in us all playing the most impactful role. Is the data that we're making available to unusual, unexpected contributors like Dr. John Snow? And is it being made available at a level of granularity sufficient for him to have found that pump? Right. So kind of a good challenge for us to keep beating that drum. So, we've talked about accuracy, precision, and resolution, and I'm not going to repeat Doug's slides, but Doug's slides from Rockland show a great case study of how the difference in resolution, the same data aggregated to different units of geography, gives you a radically different view. So if you haven't seen that, get a hold of Doug and way to go. I'll drop right into talking about not spatial resolution, but temporal resolution. Our ability to get a finer and finer slice in time is really key, especially as we look at reopening plans, and the governor's talking about moving the dials and opening the valves, letting the economy open up a little bit, and then in small areas and in small slices of time, closing that back up as needed to prevent the spread and keep people happy. So accuracy, precision, and resolution, I like to think of this way. Our friends from NGS like to say that accuracy is telling the truth. Precision is telling the same story over and over again. And resolution is really the ability to resolve smaller and smaller differences. So we're talking about now resolving in smaller slices of time. And there's great work being done testing 1 sample a day in sewage treatment plants. And maybe that's happening in some of your communities. This happens to be the sewer shed boundary of the Newtown Creek sewage treatment plant in New York City, where one test can test the relative infection rate of symptomatic, asymptomatic. Those have been tested, those who haven't, everyone who contributes a sample, which is everyone. For, in this case, 1.1 million people, pretty fantastic slice in time to get those indications. So, I was looking early on for, our normal emergency. We're flying photography, we're looking at parcels, we're trying to figure out where the floodwaters went, where the tornado is, where the terrorist attack was, whatever it is. Those things were not really part of the formula this time. But now, as we've started to evolve, anyone who has contributed to the state parcel program, and we have the collection of every county who's pulled parcels together and allowed us to harmonize them and have a common schema. Now the scientists that are measuring sewage treatment plants can look at the assessment data and say, okay, we understand the sewer shed because all these parcels are marked with whether that particular parcel is on a sewer or on septic, so, as well as the taxing jurisdictions. So it really does all come together. That's not possible to have the kind of impact without the ongoing collaboration that we have. And the state doesn't own any parcels. I mean, we own property, but the parcel data is the purview of local governments. So, the regional approach on that and collaboration and all being on the same page, that, yeah, we really do need this stuff for even one more important use case here, and that is getting that spatial and temporal resolution really nailed down. The concept that you can then go upstream in the sewage system and understand the smaller sewer shed by popping a manhole, and now you're combining spatial and temporal resolution together. That's a pretty novel concept, but it's working. I also wanted to talk about some of those factors that really come out only when we take a really deep look into the anomalies. The anomalies, if we have too granular of an aggregation, the anomalies get all kind of smoothed over, and we just see general rates by county or by zip code or whatever it is. And you hear the governor talking about micro clusters, and those are really looking at those areas where you can have the most impactful policy and the most impactful actions be taken, whether that's enforcement or education or whatever it is. And just some of those things that that come into play. What are all the parameters that make one area have a different spread than another? And there's lots of them. One of them might be the level of engagement with government. So it was pretty interesting that while we're also dealing with a worldwide pandemic, we're also trying to collect the decennial census. And this is a census tract that was experiencing some of the record low census returns. Is that because everyone's left? Maybe, but also there's other factors there. That same area, when we look at the New York City zip code data on infection rates, it's some of the highest infection rates. So the hypothesis, and it's no more than the hypothesis at this point, is that if a group of people, for any reason, is not listening to government, not engaged with government, and they're not listening when we say, please turn in your census form, what makes you think that group of people is listening when we say, please wear your mask? There are other parameters that we already have mapped, like we know voter registration rates. It kind of goes to that level of engagement. So level of engagement with government is only one of the many factors that we can use to explain the various, really the variance, the statistical variance in the COVID rates. So pretty interesting. With that thought, we mentioned this during the little write-up on the award thing, that I'm happy to just be the cheerleader. I do not take credit for the award. Lots of other people have motivated me, and lots of other people are frankly working on these systems much harder, but I graciously accept nevertheless, and I certainly appreciate it. URISA, NYSGIC, and NAPSIG came together and really rallied around the statement that was really started in the association regional meeting, that GIS can play a more impactful and bigger role, and we have to look at the things that we as geographers have a unique lens into, resolution and data availability, and understanding the geography of a situation and all the science behind it. So we have fired up the National Pandemic GIS Task Force, and and we'll hear from, you'll see the National Pandemic GIS Playbook, which we're really trying to cross-reference to other pandemic playbooks that are not GIS specific. So when somebody's looking at contact tracing or understanding test results, there'll be the spatial reference to those things to be a resource really nationwide. Some of these things are actually easier to pull off nationwide than they are to pull off a state at a time, because you've got the kind of the mass appeal if a company doesn't have to do something different. For instance, a company that is processing tests, if that company can have a consistent nationwide approach to validating an address with a geocoder, or a company that's looking at test sites, same thing, right? They're more likely to do that nationwide. So the national address database that we contribute to, it's going to work well in New York, but it's going to work well in lots of other places too. It's going to work well, really dependent on how well the state and the local governments have contributed to it, right? So those things are sometimes easier to pull off nationwide. So that group has really come together in a pretty special way, and that kind of led to something I didn't really expect, and that is that, and thank you, Alan, for looping me in. There's a group of, I will say 20 or so folks from around the world who are, it's really a nice collaboration of geographers, of epidemiologists, of public health officials, folks from the Netherlands, from Canada, from France, working in Africa, looking at worldwide, what does it take to really have, we talked about the SDI, the spatial data infrastructure of the country. How about a specific health SDI? And that's that's maybe a little more looking over the horizon, but if we don't look over the horizon, we never get there. So those activities are kind of nice. I like things that we can take action on now, and then the medium term, the pandemic playbook, and then the health spatial data infrastructure to really kind of blow these concepts out. It's just part of what we soon take for granted, and then we're not content with the next thing either. So so I'm okay with not being content, and we as a discipline are okay with not being content. We celebrate our victories, but only for a short period of time, and then we move on to the next thing. We take those victories for granted and move ahead. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're having the impact that we're having. The last couple of weeks, we've had a lot more impact in New York State. We got pulled in a big way in the last couple of weeks. I'm losing a little sleep over it, but for good reason. Not fretting about not having the most impactful contribution, but actually up at night doing some work and helping the team out. And hats off to everyone that's playing a role there. But you might see that the governor's press event and the governor's NY Forward event, you can see the micro clusters. This happens to be the Brooklyn micro cluster, and we've just this morning the governor announced a bunch of new micro clusters to help manage areas before they turn into real big problems. It was pretty gratifying. We'll if you can just play this video for me. Just a few seconds of this video is all it takes to really get the point. I'll hold there for just a minute. Someone have that video ready to cue? There's that me. Oh, you know what? Maybe that was me. There we go.
Here we go.
You can identify the cluster because we have so much data. We can tell you where there is a cluster by the actual number of cases. We have the addresses of people who are COVID positive. So we have mapping software where you can see exactly where the cluster is. That's the highest density of cases. That's where you have to take the most dramatic action. The surrounding area is where that cluster is.
That's probably good.
Why? Because.
All right. So pretty great to hear the governor talking about addresses and the governor talking about our mapping software. It's really a community-wide effort that got us to that point. So let's continue to have an impact. So that's the end of what I plan to cover. So for all the presenters, I think we can take questions in the chat, and we can bang away at that. Thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Yeah, and what you said, yeah, we can certainly open it up to some Q&A. I think everyone who presented is available as presenters now to be able to respond to questions. So I guess if we just want to keep an eye on the Q&A chat area.
All right, I'll dig up that URL. I'll do that right now. Oh, there you go. Okay, it's in the chat. Thank you. So a question for Rick popped up. Rick, do you have any feedback from the community on how your dashboard is being received?
Somewhat. I mean, they notice when there's something wrong, so yeah. It's the feedback from it's been really positive, and there's been a desire to have that kind of information from the public, and they seem to be eating it right up. So overall, I would say that the feedback as far as what we've put together and what we're trying to put out there has been viewed well.
I think there was one from Al. Is there going to be a GIS strategy for vaccine distribution?
Would you repeat that one more time, please?
Is there going to be a GIS strategy for vaccine distribution?
Oh, you know, that's a great question. Two things happened serendipitously both today. One, the association regional call, as Esri mentioned, their tools that are optimized for vaccine distribution, and the governor hit that really strongly. He said that, you know, getting our testing protocols and all of the testing materials put together was a heroic effort, but that's child's play. You know, I'm putting words where they were not, but it's child's play compared to what it's going to take to really get the vaccine out to the masses. You think about the percentage of people having been tested versus the number of people who would need a vaccine for it to be fully effective. It's quite a big difference there. So I've started some conversations about how do we best collaborate with the Department of Health and the GIS Program Office to get the state lined up on looking at options for tools like that. So it's a great idea.
I think there was a question from Mary Susan for Mike Ross. Has there been any press for the grab and go?
Yeah, there was at the time. Our communications department's pretty good about highlighting new applications and new stuff that we do. So they put it kind of front and center on the city's webpage, and I got picked up by the local news and publicized. That was back kind of during the first week or so of the shutdown. So there hasn't been any recently, and frankly, that particular application is getting very little use these days because everybody already kind of knows where they're supposed to go to get their meals. But at the time, yes, it did.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions for our presenters today?
All right, thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much, Frank. And also to Rick and to Mike. I believe with that, we can maybe try the survey for the treasurer's report. So hopefully everyone's able to see the survey summary for the treasurer report vote now. It's updating live and it looks like things are going well. guess while we wait for a few more responses, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that contributed, to the presenters, to everyone that was able to attend today's call. Also, just a special thank you to Melissa for kind of running this click meeting as host. Couldn't have done it without you and all your support here. Also, just a kudos to the board of directors, especially KARYN, Mary Susan, Michelle, for quickly assembling and putting together the virtual event agenda. I really appreciate that. And also just thank you for allowing me to serve as the association president for the last year. I look forward to staying on as past president and being involved for another year. And I don't know if I see any more people voting. Looks like we have 51% with 34 voting yes, 0 no, and 5 abstain. So I'll say that the treasurer's report passes. I did see one additional question from Eileen for Frank. So I don't know if we want to add Frank back. And Frank, I'm not sure if you can see that question, but is there a particular cooperative effort that you were surprised with or would like to highlight? Frank, I'm not sure if you're muted still. I did see you were added back as a presenter. While we're waiting, I did see another question. Is there any platform or ideas for a chance to network or connect with fellow people in the field? I don't know that we have any ideas for that at the moment. I think as we progress more in the coming months, there might be an opportunity to establish something like that so that we do have the ability for people to collaborate virtually. So that's a great question, but I don't know that we have had any initial ideas on that. So yeah. I guess with that, we'll have to maybe just table the question from Eileen for Frank. If nothing else, I think that we can run the survey, or I guess, is there a motion to end the annual meeting? So Mary Susan has made a motion and KARYN has seconded that. So I don't know if we can switch back to the motion to adjourn survey. Hopefully everyone can see that. And it looks like an overwhelming yes so far. Great. Well, again, I appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to more outreach in the coming year. And everyone stay safe, and thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.